What's up, everybody? We're recording this on Friday. You're going to receive this on Friday. If I look tired, I'm in week 2 or 3 of paternity leave, but we're celebrating the 1 year of Alex in my inbox. I have none other than Mason, who AKA is Alex. So today we're going to break down kind of the backstory of Alex, talk about our favorite additions, and then we're also going to talk about writing like you speak and why that's so important. Mason, Alex, whatever you want to call you, how are you?
What's up, man? You can call me Mason, man. It's my name. I mean, whatever. Dude, I'm doing good. I'm stoked about this. I can't believe that we've been doing this for a year. Like, this
Yeah,
is like
crazy.
it's just funny because you know how when you're a child, years feel so much longer. Like when you're 14 and you turn 15, like that year feels like forever because it's just like a bigger percentage of your life. My career is shorter than yours. And so like to me, like a year just feels so long. But like this kind of flew by still. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember growing up, like my parents always said, like life just goes by so fast. And as a kid, you have no reference and that doesn't mean anything. And now as a parent, it's like, oh my God, like my first daughter is almost 3 and we just had a second baby and I just turned 30. So life is going by fast. I can't believe this has been a year. In some ways it feels longer, in other ways it feels shorter. And for me personally, I'm biased, but this is my favorite series on the entire internet that I've ever read or been a part of. And fortunately, I think a lot of people listening or watching this feel the same. So we've done a pretty cool job with it, and I can't take too much credit.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing. We're gonna get into the story of like how Alex came to be in a second. I just remember like when it first became like a thing, like I was so stoked and we couldn't tell anyone. And the only person who knew was someone who I actually base a lot of the emails that I write off of, which is Ben, who also works with us on Copy MBA, because we were together in Charleston. And when I was in Charleston, you hit me up and you said, "Yo, Mace, I'm trying to put together a copywriting newsletter. Would you want to help out with that? And how would that look?" And so he was the only person I told for, and he was the only person that knew for like 6 months until we announced on number 30 that it was me for a Copy MBA drop. But yeah, do you remember a little bit of the story? Because I can tell if you want.
I vaguely do. I've got dad brain. So I obviously remember the part that you mentioned. I was like, I'm sending once a week. I'm sending on Mondays. I really want to do something creative, fun, copywriting oriented, but I don't know what that was. You and I have been doing some work together. You've been helping me with some other content, some other newsletters. We did some courses together. So I hit you up and like, what do we do? And now you kind of can take it from here.
Yeah, yeah. So you said let's do a copywriting newsletter. And at this point, you already had the Monday one, and then you had the paid newsletter on Thursday, and then there's another one, right?
Those were the main two, and then just a bunch of social content.
Okay. Yeah. So I was thinking, like, all right, so we already have a bunch of newsletters. People love you. Like, you have a really strong personal brand, but I want to see if there's like an experiment that we can do to make it kind of interesting. And so the original idea, because it was always going to be me writing it, it wasn't going to be you. And I didn't really want to ghost it as you.
Yes.
I think it would have been funnier if there was a way that you could have information from a third party that was exclusive to you. And so that was when we came up with the idea of like someone just sending you emails that you just repurpose. And I think we threw a couple names around for who's in my inbox, but I think we landed on Alex, and I think it has a nice ring to it. Alex in my inbox, I think it's sick. And I remember the first few, we were kind of like testing out like what people are gonna want. And so I kind of just like wrote into my own voice. And I think it was cool because like your newsletter is very polished and like it sounds premium. Like the way you write is very professional. And I write like a dickhead because I'm half your age. And so I think that like it was kind of like a cool like pattern breaker for your audience. And it seems like everyone loves it, dude. Like because at the beginning our goal was to get responses, right? Because
Yes.
we wanted to build hype and get people to talk about it on social and stuff. And like the first few that we were doing, like we would be like reply with, an answer to this question that we just kind of came up with.
Yes.
Bro, like 100 responses in like 24 hours. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, I remember. So the first edition we did, I think was, or I think maybe even was before the first edition was kind of like framing it and talking about what was coming. And the first edition we dropped it. And I remember saying to you like, hey, I don't know what this is going to be. Let's just do a couple editions. Let's just see how this goes. And I thought it was going to be, a limited series. I thought it was going to be something we do for 12 editions of. And we might call it a day. And because people have been so engaged and responding and so curious about it, now we're now 52 editions in. And I remember in the beginning, we had a bunch of people guessing like, hey, is it this Alex? Is it that Alex? People thought it was Alex Becker from Hyros that sold his company, who's big in crypto. It was crazy.
Yeah, someone thought it was Alex. Like a bunch of people thought it was Alex Becker. Some people thought it was Alex from Mosey. And then the only guess that I think makes the most sense is Alex Catoni, but this was obviously written by a man, so it wasn't her. And so like all these were just terrible guesses, but that's the coolest thing, bro. And I think for a while I tried to like make myself sound like I wasn't me, but then like at some point like our emails just started morphing into like experiences that I have in my own life, which is actually the tip that we're going to deliver after the story part here. And so yeah, then it really just became like my alter ego. Is kind of cool.
Yeah, a couple cool things for me. One is on that point you just mentioned. It's been cool for me to learn about you through the emails. I'm like, hey, is this real? Did this actually happen, or did you actually do this? And obviously, they're all yes. That's one. Two, going back to the point that you mentioned before, I'm very, what's the right word? Non-polarizing, I guess, for lack of a better word, right? I'm very like professional in the sense that I don't want to offend anyone. I want to deliver content in the fewest words possible. I really want to add value. And some of the emails that we've sent have been a little provocative where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can send this. And you kind of have to remind me like, hey, this is Alex sending this. I know Chase would never say this, but it's okay for Alex. So what I really liked is almost like, although it wasn't me, it was almost this like alter ego where I was able to share things that I otherwise wouldn't be comfortable or would ever write. And it helps deliver a message in a way that people are really receptive to. And it makes people laugh and it makes people uncomfortable, but it makes them really figure out why. So I think psychologically, as well as copywriting wise, it's been a really cool experiment to see like the storytelling and the delivery of content and the reception to it.
I've gotten you in trouble a couple of times. I think there was one time where we did an email about Andrew Tate's content strategy, and
Yes.
like everyone was like, "Oh, how could you not?" And the way I wrote it was to protect you because I knew this was going to happen. I wrote it as like, "Hey, just so you guys know, like I don't know who Andrew Tate is, but Alex does, so he's just going to give you some tips about this guy because you probably know who he is." Because like you probably don't. Like I remember you
I
saying,
vaguely, at the time, I vaguely knew of him. You had referenced him a couple of times before. I'm like, who's that? So I vaguely knew of him and I was very uncomfortable with the very few things I knew. But that there was that one. And there was one too, it was like a Forex trader from another country. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that.
"Yeah, that was ridiculous, bro. People are soft. It is what it is." You know what I mean? But anyway, I think the vast majority of people understand that like we use storytelling to get a message across because when we do it that way, it sticks with you. And I've also seen a lot of people like get a lot out of these where like people will reply to
Yes.
you, they're like, "Yeah, I use this tip and it actually worked." So like that's why
Heck
we do
yeah. I love it. Let's talk about one or two additions that we really like. And then let's end with kind of today's addition or tip.
Cool. You go first.
Yeah. So I think based off of just recency, I think the one that we sent last week about doubling your salary and how you can be more than just kind of a low to a decently paid copywriter or whatever it is that you're offering. It's by having some kind of additional skill set that makes you unique. So Ben, who Mason mentioned before, is who this email is based on. Ben helps myself and Mason on our copywriting course, as well as some other people. And by the way, I have a gardener coming, so I'm actually going to switch to you. Do you want to finish that thought? I'm going to go on mute.
Oh, okay. You were talking about, wait, sorry, you were talking about Ben.
Ben and why I think that email is so important around like being able to have a skill set that allows you to make more than just someone that maybe writes words, although that's obviously super important.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean that's huge. Like for you to transcend from like just a copywriter to having like a legit business where people like you can have crazy longevity in an industry. That's what you have to do. And like you can pick any specialty. Like some people pick cold emails. Some people pick like email marketing like you do. Some pick
Yeah.
ads, VSLs. You know what I mean? Like if you have something like that, then like you're never going out of style. And that actually is pretty similar to what we're going to talk about in a sec. But my personal favorites are the case studies that we do about other people. So I remember there was one time we did one about Matthew McConaughey right after I listened to Green Lights on audio. That was good because I was just blown away with how good he was at writing, even though he's not a writer. he's an actor, but he's also just a very wise individual that like has seen a lot of things and is just portraying that in the most artistic way possible. I thought that was really cool. And so, and then there was another one that I just saw. I was like scrolling real quick because I wanted to find one. It was what Drake can teach us about copywriting. I think that was edition number 39. And I think that might have been right after. No, I remember writing that. That was like November 2022. So I can't remember why I did it about Drake, but I think I was just like in a Drake mood. And I just realized like, okay, yeah, Drake is like that guy. Why is he that guy? And I think like if you have a personal brand, you can kind of like steal a lot of that stuff and just like put it towards something you're working on.
I love it. And by the way, I'm sorry about mute. I've got a gardener in the background. So one of the things I wanted to add about the Matthew McConaughey, what I really liked about that is the lesson there between authority and kind of being relatable, and how they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but if you're going for one style versus the other, there are things that you should try, or there's things that you should do. And I remember in that you had ways to make up for it. If you're not authoritative, you write like this. And if you are authoritative, you write like that, right? So I just like the fact that talk about someone that someone knows, right? Everyone knows Matthew McConaughey. He's very charming, charismatic. He's a really great actor. And I think the fact that you talk about how to write like him and how he kind of becomes relatable is super important. So I think on here, I'm trying to find this one right now. Oh, these are the two lines I want to talk about. So you say, as a copywriter, you can make up for lack of account or lack of authority by being so incredibly likable and fun in your writing that people read you because they love you, right? So if you have a big personality and maybe you're not the best writer, you can make up for that lack of it by just being fun and bubbly and exciting and sarcastic, whatever that might be, just really leaning into who you are. And then as if you're more authoritative, how do you become more relatable? You become charming, interesting, and wise, and you use that to kind of, I guess, lure and kind of excite people and entice them. So I thought that lesson there was really key and important because people typically are in one camp or the other. It's pretty rare to find someone that's good at both.
Yeah. That actually, like, I think for next week, I'm going to do a little similar case study on another writer that I absolutely love that everyone knows. I don't want to give it away, but yeah, dude, I think like someone who's really mastered the authority angle, not relatable at all, but is just like so authoritative and but that it makes you want to relate to them because you want to be like them. I think that is something that I really want to talk about. But yeah, man, you want to jump into the tip?
Let's end here.
Okay, so this is based on again my own life because I just did a webinar on Wednesday. Unfortunately, you couldn't make it because I know you're in dad mode, but dude, it's so fun. Like the first one that I did in December, we did that together. I think I kind of flubbed it. It was all right. This one, I actually think I crushed. And it was because I had a lot more preparation. I did a lot more research going in. And one of the people that I talked about or that I listened to was this guy named Jason Fladlian. And Jason Fladlian is like a webinar goat, right? Like he's been around since like 2008 doing webinars for people. And he's made like $100 million across like a bunch of different offers. Like we should link the YouTube video out maybe in the description because it's just so interesting. And the way he talks, because he's been doing webinars literally like every week or every day since 2008 for like, I guess it'd be 15 years. He actually talks like he's constantly in a webinar. And that took me somewhere else where it was like, if you can start to talk the way a copywriter writes, you may sound a little awkward at first, but if you can like find a way to number one, like talk like you write, like you talk kind of thing. And also like use the syntax that copywriters use to persuade and like pull people in. It's going to make you a better speaker, number one. And number two, you actually get live feedback when you talk, when you speak your copy, right? When you are talking to someone and you say something that like that you would have written, for the purpose of like really pulling them in like a crazy hook, and you see their eyes kind of light up and you go like, whoa, you can take note of that and you can see that happening in real time. You can't see that happening when you're writing a sales page. Like you can't see your customer or your prospect or your lead, right?
Yeah.
They're just and you can only tell by who buys. but you can also test stuff to see like if you say a certain thing to a person to their face, how do they react? And then use that in your writing. And that actually educates like what you could be saying so that you pull people in stronger. It's just like a better experience for your reader because you've already tested it in real life.
Yeah,
So
to add to that real quick, every week when you write Alex, you will send it to me, and I'm not allowed to read it unless we're on FaceTime or Zoom. So every week, Mason actually watches me read it out loud, and he kind of sees like where I'm laughing or where I'm smiling or I'm like, what is that word, or like what does that mean, right? So every week we actually do this with Alex. I'm reading it live for the very first time while Mason is watching me. So I think that's such a great tip, and it's something that we actually practice, not just preach.
yeah, I remember when I first started learning copywriting, I had this friend who was like really expressive, and I was actually doing this. So like before I would go into a story, I would like frame the story a certain way to see if I could make this kid pay attention. And so, but it was only because I started learning about how copywriters are supposed to write that I started incorporating that, and it like changed everything. That was like the first like small win that I had after like learning copywriting, where it was like, oh, now I can tell stories better because I'm paying attention to what words are actually making him pay attention. And so I think that's huge. I think everyone should do that, even if you're not a copywriter. Like read copy. This is like the actual tip, right? Like read copy, figure out the language and syntax that copywriters use that in your real life, and then make tweaks and test it against one another to see, if it actually works when someone's looking at you, and what you could be doing better before you go and like write a sales page and start spending $1,000 a day to get traffic to it.
It's the easiest, quickest, best way to get the feedback, because oftentimes when you ask people to reply, right, like some people do, most people don't. And at that point, you've already written it. So for you to kind of pre-test and kind of A/B test all these things in advance of actually writing it and sending it, I think it's great. So call a friend, call a customer, find someone random at the mall, right? Now that, people are going back to the malls and, talking into humans again. So like do these things. But dude, this was great. Anything else to add before I got to run and go hang out with the fam?
I think we just should, say thanks to everybody for, you know, still reading this thing a year in. I think like this, I look at your Klaviyo because I'm in there and I can see like the response that we get, like click rate's crazy, open rate's crazy. Everyone seems to like it. And we've been doing this for a year now. So I'm just grateful that people want to hear us talk, man.
Yeah, it's really cool to see the support. And I think at this point, when we started, I don't know, 52 weeks ago, we had maybe 10,000 people reading it. Now we're at like 20 or 30,000 plus people reading it every week and replying. So yeah, thank you, Mason. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone else. And if you like what we're doing, show some love on this video. Appreciate you guys.
All right.